Hi, my name is Matthew Ditch. I'm a value engineer at SAP Concur, and welcome to this webcast. The title of this session is Making the Most of Your SAP Concur Data. But what does that really mean? It means that for a company like SAP Concur, where we look to leverage smart technology to streamline and automate processes, we also capture a huge amount of data. This data, if viewed through the correct lens, can uncover opportunities for further optimization, be it process, helping with supply negotiations, or identifying non-compliant spending habits. In short, we're talking about increased visibility. So a little bit about me. I'm currently based from home in Kent in the UK. I've been at SAP Concur for almost 18 years when I consider my length of service through a couple of acquisitions. I've worked in and around the travel industry for many years in a variety of different roles. So that was booking business travel, writing code for online booking tools and desktop applications. I've managed account teams, and I've been responsible for relationships with some of the world's biggest businesses. In recent years, I've gravitated more towards data, patterns and trending, meaning I've become more consultative and strategic in my interests and my thinking. I'm currently spending a lot more time at home with my family, including my pets, as we navigate our way through these most unusual times. Dan, over to you.
Yeah, hi there, everyone. So my name's Dan Phillips. You're also joining me from my home office for the time being. So welcome to my home. Like Matt, I've got a bit of background in the travel industry. I've been with SAP Concur now for 4 years. I've always been within the sales organisation, which has meant that through my years, I've spent times with lots of different organisations, and every company that I've worked with has been at various different stages of maturity when it comes to their T&E process. I've always been keen to really understand how we can use data to help our customers improve. So, Matt, let's kick things off. What type of data do I have access to when it comes to my T&E spend?
So I guess you've got travel management company data, TMC data. You've got, so that could be online booking tool or traditional offline travel data, credit card data. That could be T&E spend card. That could be procurement card and expense data, of course. And within that, you can find things like blind spend and program leakage. You can overlay corporate structures as well, and apply some other additional logic. And kind of once you do that, you kind of have a platform really to discover where these opportunities exist. Oh, ERP data too. I almost forgot that one, and that's important. So our customers want visibility, better controls. So aggregation of that data is important. Some normalization as well, because data comes in different ways. But ultimately, customers want all of their data in one or very few places, so they can get their hands on it and analyze it.
So there's a lot, right?
Yeah.
So if I wanted to try and wrap my arms around all of that data and get hold of it, what's some of the biggest challenges that I might face?
So a colleague of mine who lived in the world of P2P explained to me the pains they went through to source and consolidate data from a variety of TMCs, as I said earlier on, expense platforms and ERPs. Add to that the task of comparing procurement spend to expense spend in an invoice platform where they're looking to find duplications. It becomes quite a time-consuming task. So a P2P manager wants to spend more time on aging, accruals, and getting as many discounts as they can for early supplier payments. The data itself, as we said, it can be fragmented or disparate. In the beginning, it can be poorly populated and oftentimes considered directional at best. Making key fields mandatory, such as vendor name for location, for tax reclaim or data analysis is important. OCR, so optical character recognition, that's difficult to say, can help if you have mobile apps or automation that can support you. If we compare company credit card data rather, to cash data, cash being personal forms of payment, there's a notable dip in data quality, which is why we consider card versus cash actually quite an important metric, because credit card companies tend to populate more fields. As an aside, card versus cash, as I say, helps businesses in times of stress that we're in now. because they can kind of use those credit terms as a float to a degree. Add to that the potential to negotiate a rebate, then you've kind of got a boon, for a business that could be in crisis or struggling.
Okay, so there's loads of data that's out there, and we know now some of the challenges involved in getting access to it. And it sounds to me like the key starting point is having an aggregated view, so one single view of all of your data in one place. Is that right?
Yeah, bang on. Yeah, so holistic
Cool.
end-to-end platforms, kind of what you're looking for.
All
Gives you
right.
that visibility, allows lots of departments really to kind of run their own best run business, really. From a spend governance perspective, once you've got all that data, I say in one or very few locations, you particularly see, the travel owners looking more closely at their managed travel program. It's widely reported that business people are not always booking their business trips through their company TMC of choice. Dan? In some cases, the online booking tool is being bypassed in favour of booking directly with an airline or a hotel company, for example. So having a platform that can capture all that rogue spend gives you a better chance of establishing, the true cost of a business trip. I mean, just to come back to that then, Dan, I mean, when was your last business trip, if you can remember back that far, and how
Yeah.
did you book it?
Yeah, it does seem does seem a world away compared to what we're doing at the moment. And Matt, in answer to your question, I'm a good corporate citizen. Yeah, I do things the way I should do. But no, actually, let's jokes aside. We had you remember we went out to the US for a company conference back in January. Um, so I had to book a flight and a hotel for that conference, and I booked. Just recalling, I booked my flight on my online booking tool, which was fulfilled through my TMC. So I did that in the right way. But actually, we in advance of the conference, I remember we were emailed a list of hotels. They wanted everyone to book into these particular hotels, and we had access to some discounted rates as part of the conference. Those rates were only available if you booked via the hotel website, which I did. So, in answer to your question, I booked my flight via the OBT, which was through my TMC, but
Mhm.
my hotel I booked directly on the hotel website.
Okay, cool. All right. So when it comes to controls and compliance, then, which I guess may or may not be a challenge here, we can analyze, that spend, and we can see it flowing through your preferred vendors. So, I guess to come back to wherever you booked that hotel for that particular conference, we could look at how we could bring that into the system potentially. Obviously, there's a duty of care angle on that as well, because we want to make sure that you're safe down on your travels.
Yeah.
And we want to know where you're going, who you're traveling with. So that's important. But thank you for being honest.
Okay, so now I've got all of that data in one place, and I've pulled in my hotel booking
Mhm.
that was sitting outside. If I wanted to start analysing that data, what is it that I should actually be looking for?
I'd probably counter that. I'd be thinking, I'd be asking you, I'd be asking a client, what outcome do they ultimately want to achieve? I think that's probably the bigger question. Who are your internal stakeholders and what are their goals, really? I think, having all the data is great, but if you want it to enable it to benefit your future results, then I think you need to kind of wrap that lens around it a little bit. I mean, we've got lots of standard reports and dashboards within Concur, but if you overlay some of your, very specific business outcomes or KPIs, then it's going to be more meaningful to you and to your business. So, for example, if the employee experience is a key metric, as it should be for most companies, then you're going to want to, help employees to work smart in order to be at their most productive rate. In this category, I'd suggest looking into areas like driving mobile adoption on your T&E apps, and other things like automating mileage as well, perhaps as an efficiency gain. Should commuter mileage be deducted? Are these being enforced? By looking at the operational data and the transactional data, you can determine where you are now and where you want to be in the future. I guess a note of caution on the employee experience as well is that seeing the data in black and white gives you a perspective, but you should also consider the X and the O, so the operational data and the X being experience. So before acting, we need to factor in human emotions, and consider our attentions in order to, retain or seek greater engagement really from the population. I mean, another area you could focus upon is T&E policy. It could be an innocent oversight or a deliberate act of erroneous filing, but it could be costing you, right? The Association of Certified Fraud Examiners estimate that organisations lose 5% of revenue to fraud each year. And it's not just big organisations either. They also state that, billing is twice as prevalent in small businesses. So are approving managers reviewing all of the receipts on an expense report? Are auditors truly looking at 100% of claims and all of the key elements therein? And what exactly are they checking for? This type of information we can begin to report upon and ask questions of ourselves.
Okay, so I can hear all the millions of people that are watching this and listening to this now shouting out in terms of
Millions?
millions of people. How much time is this going to take? We're all busy people. We're all back to back on conference calls and video calls at the moment. I suppose there's going to have to be a balance, right, between making sure we're doing this regularly enough to make sure that things aren't slipping through the net, we're not missing opportunities. So how regularly do you see someone realistically being able to do this?
I guess if we, current crisis aside for a second, I mean, you may want to address your policy once or twice a year. I mean, certainly many of our customers, I'm sure, have addressed their policy more recently anyway, with the cessation to international travel affecting most countries. But I think, ordinarily it would be, once or twice a year from a policy perspective. Other areas you should be checking more regularly, such as travel to budgets, for example, as they ebb and flow throughout the year, and that'll be different per business, per vertical. We see patterns with company billed, company paid car programs where expense submission by the individual can lag. So, we have, Dan, we have reports to review unsubmitted expenses. So that can help track this potentially hidden backlog. So I guess you could say, it varies really depending on what area you're looking at.
Sure. And I suppose there's so many different things that you can be looking for, and breaking it down into what's important is key. But how do I know if I'm actually doing the right thing?
I mean, there's a lot there, right? We've talked about a lot already, but you can't eat an elephant in one bite. You've got to have areas of focus. I mean, start at the top and work down in terms of your top expense types is a conversation that we have with clients, as you and I, Dan, have with clients. Other customers that we speak with are satisfied with our standard reports. Others, are happy with the dashboards that we have. That for other clients, there could be the consultative approach that actually delivers more value for them. So we have a service for that. On the other hand, some of our clients want to export the data and actually manage, massage it in themselves and use it for other reasons internally. Whatever that model, we're happy to help them. I think in terms of some specific examples for you, it's important to repeat the point about considering the outcome, and what you want to achieve. So these tactical efforts that I'm just going to call out now, they're going to kind of help an overriding goal, a strategic goal, and that's the way it should be thought of really in terms of steps. But first one, probably reporting upon receipt checking and compliance to policy. So that's a common area really of optimization that we work on. Hotel spend is another one that comes up quite a lot, certainly for the UK market and global markets actually, because it's not just limited to that hotel expense type where we see that spend. We see it, hotel spend occurring within entertainment, within meals, within parking. So ask yourself if meals and parking should be included within hotel room rates, for example, at your key properties or your key brands. So you review your own data and decide, or work with us to do so. In terms of entertainment and meals, are per diems in place? Would a cap on a dinner expense makes sense? Would that differ per country? Probably, but you can look at the average spend per country and even per city actually, to compare that rate, and perhaps even a 5 or 10% saving on that rate would make a difference. But again, think about the experience aspect as well before making any of those decisions. Miscellaneous spend or other spend as a category. Both those expense types can become a catch-all for non-compliant spend, so they should be reviewed regularly. So look closely at your cash transactions as well is another one. And if there are any cash transactions with a round number value, that's probably another pro tip actually for spotting potential non-compliant spend.
Yeah, it reminds me of a customer that I worked with a few years back. They're a large UK retailer, pretty household name. And before moving on to Concur, they had a pretty manual process for managing expenses. Basically, people were filling in an Excel spreadsheet and submitting them. And the reason why they moved on to Concur was really designed around the user experience. They wanted to get rid of paper. They wanted to improve the efficiencies. But actually, when they moved on to Concur, it was only through interrogating some of the data that they realized they had a bigger problem. They were using some of the basic functionality or the basic reporting that was coming off the back of the intelligence. And they were able to identify that 26% of their spend was out of policy. And given how much these guys were spending on T&E, that was a considerable amount of money. That, like I say, before they had access to this data, they didn't even realize that they had a problem. But I remember we worked with them. We put a plan in place in terms of giving them some advice. And I think through the data, they were able to put some measurements in place. They were able to put some KPIs in place and actually kind of track the progress of that. So that sticks out as a good example of where customers have used even the most basic of data to make improvements. But I'm also, I suppose, a little bit surprised. So my role, I see many different customers week in, week out, and sometimes I am a little bit surprised to see how little some customers are using their data. Matt, when you're going through your role, and I know we work quite closely together, but when you're analysing and you're pulling out insights and pieces of information to present back, how do you know, so this is two questions really, how do you know what data is important? And we also know that when it comes to T&E, it touches nearly the whole organisation. So there's lots and lots of different stakeholders that are involved in the process. Why do you think it's important that all the different stakeholders are involved in analysing the data?
Okay, Dan. So we've called out a few different personas already, but a finance persona is going to be, have very different goals, let's face it, to a travel manager. Layer on top of that learning preferences, analytical or otherwise, we can be forgiven for thinking tactically rather than strategically. Marry your T&E spend goals on top of those company objectives and outcomes would be our advice. Leverage the SAP Concur data to measure your own success. Someone put it very clearly to me recently when they said, think about how a company makes money and how we, so our combined SAP Concur team in partnership with the customer team, can help them to actually, make more, sell more, or do more. So to close the circle on that, you need end-to-end visibility, of your data before you can begin to analyze it and make it work for you.
Okay. So to summarise, what I've learned then is that, as we said to the beginning, there is a ton of data out there. Yeah. But to get anything meaningful, to have any real insights, we need to, the first thing you need to do is get that single aggregated view to be able to do something useful with that data. And in order to drive good business results, a company needs to align their reporting requirements and what they're looking for to the wider business goals. So like you say, think more strategically rather than potentially just tactically. And have a specific outcome in mind, whether that be the X's with employee experience or the O's, whether it's controls or compliance.
Exactly. Could have put it better myself, Dan. Brilliant. Fantastic. I mean, thank you for your time today. Thank you to those people that have listened to this webcast, and we'll see you again. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.